Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new podcast where today we're here once more with more Knowing Wheel. As always, I'm joined by Jamie183. How are we getting on, mate?
I'm good, yeah. Decent morning. Got my Wordle in 3 today, so that was good.
You've genuinely brought up Wordle on this podcast. That is deeply frustrating, although I didn't get it at all. Come to think of it.
It was horrendously easy today, so that's surprising.
It wasn't when I went down a rabbit hole of getting the wrong letters in the wrong order. So it was not. I had 3 greens throughout pretty much the entire thing.
That's pretty horrendous from you.
It is. Let's not talk about Wordle today. We've got plenty of things to discuss. Of course, if you missed out on the bonus podcast that went live yesterday, where we spoke about, obviously, the Alfa Romeo C42 launch, definitely recommend going back and checking that one out. And as always, there will be links down below. Of course, Manscaped, the sponsor of the podcast. If you're interested in picking up some Manscaped gear, we've got a link and obviously a code. If you use code WHEEL, you save 20%. Of course, F1 merch as well. I've been announcing over the last couple of days, there's been all new lines dropped over on F1 merch. I think basically now every team has done their 2022 launch. So whether you're a Mercedes fan, a Ferrari fan, a McLaren fan, even Jamie, you're one of 4 Alfa Romeo fans, definitely go and check that out. And of course, if you use the link down below, you massively help support the channel. But yeah, of course, Jamie as well, clips and Spotify, there'll be links down there as well. There's plenty of links being dropped down in the comments below. But today, we've got a lot of important stuff to get through, don't we, Jamie?
Yeah, a lot has changed in the world since we recorded last week. Most of all, probably in terms of F1 terms, the thing that's affected the team the most is probably Haas, who, of course, I'm sure everyone is aware, Russia have invaded Ukraine. We're not here to bring the news. That's been out, it's common knowledge. I was
going to say, we weren't the first to know about that.
It's very, very disturbing situation completely. And my prayers go out to any Ukrainian people suffering, basically. That's affected Haas quite severely because obviously they've got Russian flags all over their car and the whole world is now trying to remove Russia from anything. So
they did have Russian flags all over their car.
Yeah, which is now just basically a plain white car, which actually looks quite nice just from an artistic point of view.
Yes,
and also with that Uralkali, the sponsor who obviously caused the Russian oil company, I believe, backed by Mazepin's dad, who's a good friend of Vladimir Putin, which is not the best place to be at in the world right now.
You can pick your friends better this week, I reckon.
Yeah, it's looking fairly certain at this point that Mazepin will not race for them this season.
Yeah, it's looking very, very difficult, isn't it? Again, this whole podcast this week is probably just going to be based on speculation, that knowing the timing Jamie and I have on this series will mean by the time it goes live, something will have already been confirmed, and then we'll just look like Muppets. But yeah, as Jamie obviously mentioned, Nikita Mazepin's father, Dmitry, is actually a Russian oligarch. He was named on that list of 37 people that were obviously working very, very closely with Vladimir Putin. I believe he was actually in the meeting on Thursday last week with Vladimir Putin as well, of course. Some of the most famous people sort of roped into this, involved with this. I think obviously the big one for especially UK people as well, and a lot of Europe, is obviously Abramovich. Roman Abramovich,
the owner of Chelsea Football Club.
Exactly.
Or the former owner, I should say.
Well, this is where things are a little bit uncertain at the moment, isn't it? But obviously, again, there's a lot of legal jargon around this, but to kind of explain it in the best terms for F1 fans to understand, it looks highly likely that Uralkali won't be able to give Haas money this year. And of course, then Haas will go back going, well, what's the point in us having this kid in our car if he's A, useless, and B, now doesn't provide any financial help?
Yeah, it's looking... And also, many countries are just banning Russians from entering at all.
Yes.
Which would therefore mean that Mazepin can't go to the races. So,
yes,
for many reasons, most of all the moral reasons of not supporting Vladimir Putin effectively, it looks likely that they'll need a new driver at Haas.
Yes, it certainly does. Now, 4 drivers then, Jamie, have sort of come into the fray this week, or into the picture of who can take that seat. So, of course, we're going to jump through each one. Who would you like to start with?
I reckon start from the most boring upwards. So we'll go Fittipaldi to start with, I reckon.
Okay.
Who, so of course, he drove for Haas when Grosjean was injured at the end of 2020. Of course, it wouldn't be his debut with the team, though. It's basically a safe bet, I guess. The only way I can see this happening is if they're able to keep Mazepin, but he can't go to certain countries, and those races where he can't go, they would get Fittipaldi in, because that's kind of the point of a reserve driver.
I think that would be most of the races when you think how European-based Formula 1 still is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, a bit of a background story then to Pietro Fittipaldi, of course, came up through the junior ranks. Of course, Fittipaldi, yes, he's the grandson of the iconic Brazilian legend, Emerson Fittipaldi. Like you said, obviously, is Haas's reserve driver, did a couple of races for them at the back end of 2020. Didn't exactly set the world alight, did he, Jamie?
He wasn't terrible, but he just wasn't great. So
no.
There was very low expectations for him. The car was pretty dreadful. He wasn't offensively worse than Magnussen. He obviously got beaten in both qualies and races.
He was still pretty worse than Magnussen, though, wasn't he?
But it wasn't like laughable as far as I remember.
No, I don't think it was laughable. But by that point, Magnussen had all but given up as well, hadn't he?
Yeah.
So probably wasn't great. Let's have a look. Let's go F1 2020 Abu Dhabi. That's probably going to be our best reference because of course everyone else had done Bahrain. I don't remember him being completely horrendous, but I don't think it was particularly good either. But
he won't be, or if he does get a seat, I don't think he'll be much of a step up on what Mazepin offers them, really.
To be fair, Abu Dhabi was only 0.3 slower than K-Mag in qualifying. Which, actually, to be fair, is pretty good.
That's not that bad. No.
And then in the race, he was a lap behind him, which isn't so good.
Or he would have got lapped, and Magnussen wasn't lapped, was that, or something?
Yeah, so Magnussen got lapped once, he got lapped twice.
Okay, so it's hard to tell what the actual gap was.
Yeah. They both got jumped by Nicolas Latifi, though, which tells you everything you need to know.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, so I hope this one doesn't happen, to be honest. I don't think it'd be very exciting for the team. Of course, we heard Fred Vasseur this week saying that like having an experienced driver next to a rookie, or effectively a rookie, is a much better way of doing things than having two rookies. And I think Gunther Steiner has kind of come to that conclusion as well, having had two rookies last year. It's not the best strategy, I don't think. So I would be surprised if Fittipaldi does get the seat full time. But what do you think on it?
Yeah, I think to play sort of devil's advocate, if you will, on this, obviously could potentially bring a lot of money to the team. And this was something I was umming and ahhing about earlier on, when we we're going to talk about Andretti later on in the video, but Haas, I think, desperately now, more than ever, probably need to completely swing back towards this born in the USA mentality. Especially with the way the sport's grown over the last 12 months. If they bring in a US driver, paint the car with US flags, and build up what is already a rapidly growing audience, they might not end up in a situation again where they're having to try and be backed by Russian money, which at the moment is not worth the paper it's printed on.
No.
So whether we'll see that sort of twist from Haas, like we've said, is a very, very different question. Like you mentioned there, it looks like Haas want, if they can, ideally, is try and get someone in with some experience, and that kind of leads us on quite nicely into the man it looks like Gunther Steiner is really pushing towards, and I think, am I right in saying would be the man you'd want to see in the car out of the four?
Probably. We're talking about Nico Hülkenberg, of course, the absolute goat, but
I've
got such, like, I don't know how to feel if this was to come true, because obviously I'm a fan of his. I really do want to see him come back. But the car's going to be trash, and he's not going to be...
2 years worth of development.
Well, yeah, but still. And I don't believe he would be anywhere near his prime, to be honest. He's, 33 now? Maybe 34? Is
he only that old?
He's not like, old, but, like, he's definitely not...
I always thought he was going to say, like, prime. 34, 35, to be honest. I'm trying... Oh, no, I found some random...
He is 34,
tennis player? No, I found a footballer.
No, he's 34. He obviously had a year out of sport completely, had another year basically out of sport in 2020.
And 2011.
Yeah, great. A decade
Just
ago.
wanted to... And remember, he got replaced by Pastor Maldonado.
He got replaced by
whenever
money.
Jamie brings up Hülkenberg, I like
getting
to
a
remind
pole
him.
position 2 races prior. I'll bring that one up again.
There would be some deep irony there, isn't it? That Hulkenberg starts his career by getting replaced by someone with a lot of money, and only gets back into Formula One
when the money
because
dries
someone
out.
with a lot of money needs to be replaced.
Yeah, I think if Gunter wants this, and obviously he's got tons of experience, will know how to set a car up. I think he gets along well with Mick Schumacher. I might have just made that up because they're both German.
2 Germans.
But yeah, it'll be a good relationship, you'd imagine. Hulk's obviously not. He wouldn't be like expecting massive things from Haas, so he'd just be there to help Mick develop. So I don't know. I think the problem at the end of 2019 when he was looking for seats was like he had a lot of wage demands. I feel like now he wouldn't have such high expectations because obviously he's not like a hot property anymore. Not that you're going to say not that he was then, but
well, you said it for me.
Yeah.
I think I
can see it happening.
Hulkenberg would surely now be the cheapest date in the world for a Formula One seat at the moment.
It wouldn't shock me if he gets it, and it'd be really cool. I would like to see him back.
Because I think, obviously always the wages of the drivers are not very well known. I think Mick was on $500,000 last year, effectively, although I'm never really sure how it works when you're paying the team.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Hulk would probably be able to try and request anything more than about $1 million, unless he could bring some sponsors with him as well.
You'd imagine he would bring some sponsors because he's a big name and he works quite closely with Samsung.
Is he particularly though?
I know that he does hashtag ads on Instagram all the time for Samsung, so he must have them on board.
Let's have a look. Nico Hulkenberg's sponsors.
I think he's still got some of the German backing.
I was going to say he's got Decra along with Alpine Stars. He's worth about 4.6 million. He's only worth 4.6 mil.
I'd take that if I was worth 4.6 mil.
I love the fact that on his social media, Jim, you're going to love this.
Oh, no.
He also has a YouTube channel with 841 subscribers.
I've almost got more than that.
To which he used to upload content about 6 years ago.
Oh, I need to find
That's
this.
incredible.
That's my evening sorted.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Back to the point. I think it wouldn't shock me. To be fair, I think this is probably the most likely as of this second right now. It's probably
I think if you were going to put your money on anyone, Hulkenberg there, even if he did literally just come in as the world's cheapest date, it would make sense for Haas. The only, again, like you said, obviously, Hulkenberg seemed to, for some reason, believe he was worth his weight in gold in Formula One.
I just think he didn't think it was worth his time to trail around at the back, almost like Magnussen was saying in his biography, or his autobiography recently.
He could have come back with Williams.
Yeah, but he didn't want to, because there's no point. I don't know. I feel like those sorts of drivers who've been in midfield all their career, unless they're really missing the sport, there's no point just coming back to do more of that.
I don't know. I think the thing is with Hulkenberg as well, obviously, he stayed as a third driver for Aston Martin, hasn't he? Which I just find hilarious.
Because he's clearly better than Stroll, and I would stand by that.
Yeah, so would I. I'd argue, to be honest.
He's probably as clean as Vettel at this point.
He would probably still do better than both of them over the course of a season. But yeah, so obviously he'll have still been doing a lot of his fitness regime, everything like that. And I think, like we said, if I was putting money on anyone, I think Hulk would A, be the most sensible, and B, be the most likely one. Let's go into one that is probably the one I least want to see in the car then, Jamie. Apparently, and again, we can sort of understand why he's being linked to the seat. Apparently, Antonio Giovinazzi is sniffing around.
Yeah, and it would just be such dead news almost.
I mean, he's been awful in Formula E.
Has he? I've not been following it at all.
He's been hanging on around the back in the 2 races I've seen.
But he was so uninspiring in all of his time Formula One.
He had a couple of flashes of the Pan brilliance, but they were very much just flashes, weren't they?
Yeah.
Because I think this was the problem as well. Being in Alfa Romeo, obviously, when he managed to get into Q3 a few times, people weren't comparing it to George Russell being able to get into Q3.
No. Because everyone kind of figured that Kimi had given up on being quick in qualifying by then.
Yeah. So currently, Antonio Giovinazzi is 22nd in Formula E.
How many drivers are in FE?
22.
Oh, great.
He's behind
so he's lighting
Dan
it up.
Ticktum.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he's with Dragon, which are an awful team as well.
They sound like a made-up team, to be honest.
Well, they're Dragon, Penske, Autosport, which are three companies. Yeah. Seems interesting.
I mean, I hope this doesn't happen. It almost wouldn't surprise me just because obviously the Ferrari backing of Haas. But it would be so uninspiring. He's not going to bring much in terms of pace. He's not going to bring much in terms of experience. He's only had, 3 years in F1?
It's a fair amount, to be fair to him.
Well, it's only one more than Mick. Or 2 more than Mick, sorry.
I was going to say, how can you not count to 3?
Yeah, that's dangerous. That's worrying, sorry. I don't really see it. I also don't see why Ferrari would push that hard to get Giovinazzi back in F1 because he's sort of had his chance.
Because he's Italian.
But he's also
useless.
Yeah, I was going to try and say it a bit more gently than that.
Sugarcoat it. Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? Ferrari obviously want to keep Giovinazzi around because he's Italian. I don't even know if he brings that much sponsorship because his personality. He's basically like Nicolas Latifi, isn't he? You could quite easily forget he was there.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. The only way I can sort of see Haas wanting him is if they go, right, well, we'll have him back in the car this year, but we want free Ferrari power for the next 3 years or something like that.
If they sort out some mega deal, basically.
But it does just beg the question. You know, we're sort of looking around here. We've got a driver that neither of us are confident in. We've got a driver that's only ever done 2 Grand Prix that we're not confident in, and we've got a man that hasn't been in a car in almost 2 years. That one of your favourite drivers of all time, you're not even confident in.
I think he'd do a good job. I don't see him having the desire to come back full time, and I don't think he'll be as good as he once was.
Oh yeah, I don't think he'd jump back in and suddenly be the same mediocre Hulkenberg he was all those years ago.
I'm not having this.
Let's jump in then, Jamie, to the one I think I can definitely say I'd most want to see in the car, but is definitely the biggest stretch.
Definitely won't. You can say that now.
Say definitely won't. Highly unlikely he won't. I want to believe just a little bit.
Young Oscar Piastri. I just don't see this at all. I think he's probably the best driver who's not in F1 at the minute in terms of single seat drivers.
Yep, I'd agree with that. He's right up there, yeah.
It's a bit of a crime that he's not in F1, to be honest, and I completely blame Alpine for this.
Yep, so we both do. No, you can't blame Guan Yu Zhou for it, because even out of his way and got backed by a lot of Yan.
Yeah.
As soon as they invade Taiwan, he's screwed.
I have been slightly worrying about that, to be fair. But yeah, Piastri is obviously Alpine reserve, F2 champion, F3 champion, F4
Formula
champion.
Renault champion. He's done. I think he's actually done better than Leclerc and George Russell because they didn't win 3 junior championships in a row.
I don't
progressively.
Did they do 3 in a row?
Yes. No one just goes straight into F3 or GP3 as it was back then, do they? Oh yeah, I think. Keep talking about Oscar Piastri for a second. I'm just going to double check I haven't made that up.
He's clearly going to be an F1 in the future, quite obviously.
We do hope so.
He's got to be. I would put my entire bank account on him being an F1 next year in 2023.
I want to hold you to that.
There's no way he's not. And if someone needs to get arrested if that's happened. But yeah, I don't see this happening for a number of reasons. Firstly, he's nothing to do with Haas. Secondly, they've made it quite clear that 2 rookies is a bad idea. So replacing one rookie with another one isn't really going to help.
Not replacing a rookie. They've already got now a driver with a little bit of experience.
Sophomore, whatever they call him.
A sophomore, yeah.
Sophomore, yeah. With another rookie. I just don't see it happening. And yeah, I do think Piastri would do a good job if he went. I think he'd comfortably beat Schumacher.
Interesting take.
I don't.
One I agree with, but interesting.
I think if you compare the F2 campaigns, then Piastri's was far more impressive. So
yes, yeah, and of course, the other interesting thing I thought about was obviously Mick Schumacher was renowned for his 2nd season in a Formula 1 team. Piastri has basically been renowned as I'll jump in and beat everyone in my first time in the car.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, F1 champion, get 4 in a row.
Exactly. And just to back up that point I made a moment ago, yeah, Charles Leclerc and George Russell both won GP3. Leclerc the year before that came 4th in the FIA European F3, and then George Russell the year after came 3rd in the same championship. So Oscar Piastri, did win three junior titles in a row, which George Russell and Charles Leclerc couldn't do. And they're two of the hottest property now in Formula 1. The main reason I want to remain optimistic about Oscar Piastri coming into Formula 1 is literally earlier on today, Alonso has said he wants to do at least 1 or 2 more years after this season in the sport. So the only real way at the moment I can see Piastri coming in, because of course Ocon's got a long-term deal, is either with Andretti, which again we'll talk about a lot more later on in the podcast, or he just has to try and go out somewhere else and prove himself with another team.
Yeah. It could also make a little bit of sense for Alpine themselves, because obviously they've got a stacked young lineup. It's completely. If they were to make ties with Haas and maybe like have one of those seats, almost like we see with Ferrari and Alpha, or
and Red Bull with Williams
Red Bull
at the moment.
With Williams right now, but that's up for a change quite often. It could happen. I don't think it will. I still would back Hulkenberg, I think. And also, I've just done some research and found out that Hulk also won 3 years in a row of Junior Formula. So,
Did
there
he?
You go. A1GP, F3 and F2.
Oh, A1GP doesn't count for anything.
Why not?
It was awful. You can't honestly say that with a straight face.
Champion.
You cannot say
F3
A1GP.
Champion, 2009 GP2 champion. What are you saying?
Jimmy, how do you expect A1GP to be compared to anything? Let's just have a look. What season was that? Sorry, 2007?
06, 07, yeah.
Oh, so it was a season that lapped over years. Wow.
Well, no, it was... Wait, let me... this is so off topic, but we're doing it.
We are going down a rabbit hole.
October to April, so it was basically 2007.
I'm sorry, Jamie. This is awful. He went up... New Zealand came second. And have you ever heard of Robbie Kerr? No, nor has anyone else. And he managed to come third.
Sebastian Buemi raced in it. And
Great.
Sergio Perez.
Great! Perez did one weekend.
Yeah, and didn't get any points. Rubbish.
I cannot believe you've actually tried to
Greece
bring the
came
A1GP.
24th.
There was 24 countries involved.
Well, there we go. Piastri is no better than Hulkenberg if you look at that junior formula.
I am very frustrated with you right now. Genuinely, that has annoyed me.
But yes, if we were to... Well, we can choose who we think will get it and who we want to get it each, I reckon.
Yes.
In terms of the Haas seats.
I mean, we've both kind of said that, haven't we, already now? We both think Hulkenberg will get it, and we both want Piastri to get it.
I don't know who I would be quite happy if either of them got it, Hulk or Piastri.
The thing is, Piastri is a young, exciting prospect. Hulk is old and washed up.
Yeah. No.
Yeah? No.
So he'll suit the rest of the Germans on the grid then?
Yeah, pretty much, won't he? Who's that? Seb and...
That's
just
it.
Seb?
And
just
Nick,
Seb, yeah, pretty
but
much.
he's young.
Yeah, and Mick Schumacher. I was going to say. Yeah, I would just beg Alpine. Look, you're on a budget cap now. You got plenty of money to throw around. Just pay them what they want to put Mick in the car, Oscar in the car for 2022. Even if it's just to get your own data on him or give Haas a cool looking Alpine style livery or something like that. Desperately want to see Oscar Piastri in that car. Talking, obviously, whilst we're on the topic of Haas, though, Jamie, looks like apparently 1+1, which I've learnt are the company that obviously back Mick with the team, and Gene Haas look like they're going to have to be the ones that pour the money in, though, which I don't think Gene Haas is particularly happy about.
No, I'd be surprised, although at least it's kind of... It's no one's real fault, because...
I can blame one
I can blame
Russian
Vladimir
on it.
Putin, but like Gunther Steiner had nothing to do with it. So I don't think it obviously is a really bad situation, but it's not like he can blame the drivers for constantly crashing in cars and costing money and stuff like that, because it's genuinely completely out of anyone at Haas's hands. Yes, and it's just fallen that they now need more money, which is going to come from Gene Haas, and that's kind of what you sign up for when you're in an F1 team.
Yeah, it is quite impressive, isn't it, that Gene Haas... I mean, he's desperately tried to sell bits of the team off as best as possible. But, yeah...
Whatever he tries, it just comes back to him all the time.
It does really... I mean, Haas, to be fair, they are a team that, up until last year, I did quite support. They haven't had a fun time of it in the sport either, have they? They came in, did really well the first couple of years, then ended up getting money from didn't get money from Rich Energy,
Yeah.
then have to sell off to Russia, and then this happens. Like, I just feel sorry for the staff that work at the team as much as anything else.
Yeah. Because they're doing their best, but there's no money, and there's seemingly not much hope at the minute.
No.
But then we haven't seen them turn a wheel in anger yet, so you can always wait and see.
Yeah, and I'm not optimistic that's going to be particularly great either, because the pace didn't look good in winter testing, and they did the least laps out of anyone.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, we've said it before, haven't we, on this podcast? We're not optimistic about Haas's longevity in the sport.
No.
This certainly hasn't helped the argument against that, has it?
No, not really. But we'll move on.
Yeah, let's discuss our other American team then, Jamie, that are potentially coming in.
Yeah, Andretti. We spoke about them last week.
We've mentioned them about 4 times so far today. They seem to be looped in with everything.
Yeah, there's been no concrete anything has happened since then, but yeah, there's a few little more news things about them since last time we recorded. One of which is there's not many teams very happy about them, which is interesting, because the FIA obviously would want more teams, you'd imagine, because I think they aim for like 12, and after that it gets a bit ridiculous. But
12 is what they aim for. 13 is the maximum at the
Yeah.
moment. You can only have 26 cars in a race.
And of course we've only got 10. So do they, like, the FIA will push for it? Other teams, obviously they've got their own interests at heart, so they're going to be like, one more team to potentially beat us is probably a bad thing. So they've kind of been against it, but we see this quite often with teams, like, especially the powerful teams, playing their cards close to their chests and sort of getting their own way eventually.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, isn't it, with Andretti, is... I mean, we had a lot of the same sort of controversy when Haas were coming to the sport as well, in all fairness. I think what the FIA would need to change is every team get a share of the prize pool, is the big one, like they promised HRT, Virgin and Caterham all those years ago, and they went, oh no, it's only the top 10. So it was basically just whichever team of those lucked into a better result over the year when there was carnage got the points and the money. I think what the big teams are worried about, though, and I don't think a lot of people this side of the pond realise as well, Andretti are very, very sophisticated as an organisation and minted as well. In the years before the budget cap, had they wanted to come in, they would not have struggled to put upwards of £500,000 into a yearly budget.
Yeah, and it says a lot, I think, because say if, I don't know, Manor tried coming back, you don't imagine Mercedes would be that worried. They'd probably really be for it because they used to have quite close ties. But the fact that the big teams are, or do seem to be rattled a little bit, or like quite scared of letting Andretti in, they clearly know that they could be a threat in the future.
Yes, yeah, that's the really big thing, isn't it? And I mean, so far there's only been 2 teams that have confirmed they would be, because of course the FIA have to allow, all the teams have to agree that a new team can come in. Apparently it's only McLaren, and I think it's Haas as well, I remember reading, but don't hold me to that one. I know there were 2 teams, definitely McLaren and I think Haas are the only teams that are happy to see Andretti come in. But of course Andretti, even in the past, have tried to buy Haas off Gene, and he's not wanted to sell to him. Yeah,
I think that was at the time when Gene Haas probably had a bit of hope for the team.
Well, back into 2019, obviously when all the Rich Energy stuff was falling through.
Yeah, so Andretti's been trying to get into the sport for a while. You imagine, well, the FIA are definitely for it, just because of more teams and American market is huge. So it will definitely benefit that. And it is quite surprising, I find at least, that teams are scared. I get almost the lower team, like Williams and the likes of Alfa Romeo maybe, the teams that would initially be under threat from Andretti, I get why they wouldn't let them in, because especially with the 10th place thing, basically another team means that someone could then move from 10th to 11th, whether it be Haas or Williams or whoever, and then suddenly that's going to put them under threat of not continuing the sport, basically, because of no prize money.
Yes, yeah.
So I can see why those sorts of teams are a bit apprehensive, but the fact that Mercedes and Red Bull seem to be the most reluctant is quite surprising.
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes and Red Bull have been the most vocal about it, isn't it? But of course, normally we hear a lot more from Toto Wolff and Christian Horner. Speaking of... Well, again, this week it has been confirmed. Michael Andretti did also confirm that Renault Power would be what they'd go with. Which, again, then I'm sort of like, why are Red Bull and Mercedes worried?
Yeah. It's going to blow up all the time, as we've seen from testing, apparently. But
could we see them maybe become a bit of a Renault Junior team? Is this going to be the way Oscar Piastri finally gets into F1?
You hope he'll be in by 2025, wouldn't you?
Well, 2024 they're looking to come in, and I'd hope he'd be there before then.
Yeah, maybe it's a Caio Collet job when he's grown up a bit. So, yeah, we'll see. I think it was fairly expected that they have to go with Renault, because there's a rule that if no one wants to supply them, then the team that supplies the least other teams has to supply them. So it was always going to be Renault, really.
But I mean, they could have tried to do a deal with Mercedes. Honda, you wouldn't really probably want to do a deal with at the moment, of course, because there's all this uncertainty about them. And I don't think Red Bull. That will be quite funny if in the future Red Bull have to start giving other teams power units. Yeah,
Red Bull Powertrains becomes like, imagine like a Alfa Romeo Red Bull or something.
Yeah, Red Bull Powertrains becomes the new Cosworth DFE or something like that. Would be quite funny. But yeah, I'm just sort of looking at it going, I think I mentioned this before a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, Jamie? You know, whether that could be where Guan Yu Zhou goes in the future, you know, sort of give Andretti guaranteed income coming in as well. But could this then loop back around to Haas going, well, actually, we could go with some Renault power as well here, and then we'd have quite a good benchmark to go up against.
Yeah, they could fight it out to be the best of the Americans, I guess.
Yeah, lots of speculation, isn't there? Like we said, this week is pretty much all about speculation, but we can hope. You know, Andretti, we want more teams on the grid. The only other reason I can think that the FIA might be reluctant to have them, of course, goes back to Audi apparently want 2 teams in the sport. And if Porsche, I mean, there's more talks that Porsche obviously want to come in as an engine supplier rather than a team. You know, then could the FIA be going, well, why on earth would we want some Americans in if we can get 3 new German teams in?
Yeah, and they're huge manufacturers. That would do loads for them.
Yes, yeah. But it seems reassuring, though, from Andretti. And, of course, the media around Formula 1 in more recent years has been a lot more, obviously, informed and everything like that. But it does feel like there's a lot more talk about them than we've ever really had with teams before that want to try and get into the sport.
Yeah, even the likes of Audi have been rumbling on for the best, like, ever since I went onto F1 Twitter, which was like 6-7 years ago now.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot more promising talks of Andretti already than any other like team throughout the time I've been on Twitter. So we'll have to wait and see.
We certainly will, and of course, they're still eyeing up 2024 if it's going to be ever. But you never know, they could push that forward a year if they get a bit excited, if they get accepted in, everything like that. 200 million buy-in though is still absolutely insane, but they reckon that is chump change. Exactly. Andretti have said, no, we can do that. That's fine. Which again is, I think, probably why we're sort of seeing the big teams kind of bricking
a bit scared,
at the moment. Last but not least, though, Jamie, sort of our main talking point of today, which of course will divide up into a few little subsections. Winter testing, or pre-winter testing, or whatever we want to dub it now.
Long shakedown, I believe.
Long shakedown, from Circuit Catalunya has all been finished. Of course, there was all this controversy a few weeks ago about the fact it wasn't going to be streamed live or anything like that. And to be fair, I probably got as much information from it as I would if it was on TV, because who's got the time to watch F1 during the middle of the week? Exactly. Or go to uni like Jamie does.
I have a job as well. Chill out.
Okay, fair enough. Rather than trying to pull rank. Interesting, though. Obviously, again, we cannot tell you enough. Winter testing does not guarantee anything in Formula 1, especially pre-winter testing extended shakedown, or whatever we're dubbing it now. It doesn't guarantee anything in the sport. Lap times
do not matter. Do not look at lap times.
That being said, Hamilton was fastest. We're going to look at lap times. We're going to talk about that. Hamilton fastest at the end of pre-winter shakedown testing extra.
I'm just going to do some quick research of what the pole time was at Catalunya in last season.
Probably a 15.
It was a 16.7. So
16.7.
Hamilton's time is, what's that, 2.4 seconds slower.
And when the teams reckon they're only going to lose about half a second.
Yeah, clearly they're not pushing. Like,
no.
This is all meaningless. It looks like Mercedes 1-2 with Perez third. It could be anything. I think the talking of the paddock was that Ferrari and McLaren are both quite strong.
Yes.
And Ferrari are staying quiet, which usually means they are quite strong, because I think they've learned from back in the day when they used to blow their own trumpet massively.
Absolutely rag around pre-season testing, get to Australia and then go, where Merc pace come from?
Yeah. We're now fifth. What's happened? I think, and also Mercedes and Red Bull have said they're bringing basically B-spec cars almost to the actual Bahrain test in a week's time. A 19-1 for Hamilton, ranging down like through the 20s for the lower end of the field and stuff. It means very little. It doesn't really mean a lot at all. But I'm sure Matt's very happy that Hamilton is at the top of the timesheets.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic. Like I said, it means nothing, so great.
Yeah, more importantly, I think the laps completed is the one that's
Ferrari could actually be tooting their own horn about.
Yeah, and that's also like the thing that matters in winter testing. It's basically just run the cars, see what goes wrong, and fix it in time for the season. That's sort of the agenda. So laps completed is a much better barometer of who's doing well, I find.
Sainz 2022 world champion.
Yeah, Sainz has won the laps completed in first shakedown testing world championship, which is a snappy title. But
it is
236 laps. I think 200 almost of those were in one day, because he only did a day and a half in total.
Yep.
So he did at least 3 race distances in a day, which was pretty mad. And the Ferrari's basically working flawlessly so far, which is nice for our very early preseason predictions, but I think we both put them as champions.
No, I put them as second, because I'm not a complete moron.
I'm definitely on the Ferrari hype train. So, it's a good time to be a Ferrari or a McLaren fan. The Mercedes, of course, ran pretty smoothly, as they always do. Red Bull had a small amount of issue with Perez one of the days.
Yeah, Perez had a couple of small issues, didn't he? I think. Yeah. But really, again, it felt almost like we've got this whole new generation of cars. There's all this hype around it. And it doesn't really seem like the order's changed around a huge amount, does it?
Not massively.
Apparently the rumblings are, like we said, Mercedes and Red Bull still seem to be right at the front. Ferrari and McLaren have looked strong, but apparently they've basically shown their hand in terms of what their car will look like in Bahrain, whilst Mercedes and Red Bull are apparently bringing a lot of upgrades. So I think Bahrain testing is going to be a lot more of a telling story, isn't it? But going back to the laps, though, reassuring to see Alex Albon there, up in 4th place with 207 laps. That's very good going. Yeah,
and good for Williams. I remember a couple of years ago, they were absolutely shocking in testing. They didn't arrive for 2 days, and then it was all downhill from there. I think they had Kubica and Russell as their lineup in 2019.
Yeah, just couldn't get any laps in. Of course,
so reassuring stuff for them.
Yeah, and I mean, Albon himself did more laps than Alfa Romeo and Haas, which I think are the team a lot of people still think Williams is going to be battling with. But I mean, both of those teams, when it couldn't get, especially for Haas, when it couldn't get much worse, really poor winter testing in terms of reliability. Of course, Alfa Romeo had to bring in a load of parts on day 2.
I think Alfa were... I obviously am a massive Guanyu Zhou fan, so I'm following Alfa very closely. They seem to be okay with how it went. Obviously, they're a bit frustrated that they lost track time, but all the stuff that went wrong were quite simple fixes. It was just
important that it got ironed out, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it wasn't horrendous for them. It's not like they've got a complete misunderstanding of the car.
No. And of course,
but it was a bit of a shame for Bottas specifically. I think Zhou got a full afternoon's running. It did like 70 laps one afternoon. So he got, I think, 110 roughly, and Bottas got about 50. And Kubica obviously got a few on the first day as well. So not ideal for Bottas and his new team, but Zhou did a decent job apart from spinning into the gravel once, which is a thing rookies do sometimes.
Didn't he do it twice?
No, the second time the car just broke down on the outlap.
Right, okay.
So he only made a mistake
we'll allow
once.
that then. Yeah. I think, like we said, Bahrain will be a much more telling test, won't it, than anything else. But Haas with leaks and issues, and it turns out their funding comes from countries that like to start wars. Yeah. It's not been a fun couple of weeks for them, both in the circuit and outside of it as well. but we'll have to wait and see about that. Obviously, the other big reliability thing, though, as we're talking about that, of course, Alpine with Fernando Alonso. I mean, I like the old-style engine blow-ups, you know. We want to see a lot of smoke, like a proper V10 completely getting chucked out the back end of a Formula 1 car. It's not always a pretty sight, but
it's not great for visibility on track either, but it's always nice.
But it is always quite a shot, isn't it?
Yeah, and Alonso stood there shrouded in engine smoke, harking back to 2017 and back to 2006. Well, he didn't even have any failures, did he? No, when was
I don't
back
know when
in
you're
the day?
Thinking of.
I never really him, but it was just like back in the days when the internal combustion engines just used to break all the time.
That was Kimi Räikkönen in 05,
yeah,
though. The car just blew up every other week.
He's getting his comeuppance for that, maybe winning a championship by reliability in 05. But yeah, the Alpine didn't look brilliant on reliability. I think there was another issue as well, one of the different days. So yeah, we've heard rumblings of stuff going wrong at Alpine. We've also heard everything internally being quite positive. So they're one of those
very,
teams
very odd, isn't it?
We have no idea what they're going to do. So
yeah, because even after the engine failure for Alonso, he still sounded very optimistic for him, which is Alonso, so he's probably cursed himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alpine again. I mean, you predicted them like fourth this year. I think I said about 7th or 8th.
Yeah,
either still seems as likely as the other at the moment, doesn't it? Like they could finish either end. We just really don't know.
Yeah, they're very, very French, very unpredictable. So we'll see what's going to happen.
Right, yeah. Okay. Let's talk about then the final big sort of talking point from winter testing, Jamie. Something that Formula 1, well, definitely not in our lifetime.
No.
But something that Formula 1 hasn't seen in a very, very long time. Porpoising has returned.
Yeah,
now, do you want to explain that to everyone? Well, not brand new.
Nice.
Back in the late 70s.
Well, I thought you said a Guan Yu then for a second. That would have been a good joke. Yeah, porpoising, it's to do with ground effect. I know that. Obviously, they've changed the aerodynamic. The aerodynamics are way less important now in terms of generating downforce to the cars, and all the downforce, or a vast majority of it, comes from the ground effect, which is also to do with the floor and how close you can get to the ground, which they're very close this year, as we've seen very many clips. Specifically, I saw the Ferrari of Leclerc was the most extreme one, I believe.
Yes.
Basically, the car bounces up and down like it lurches forward and backwards as you go along the straight, because it's so close to the ground that it's like vacuuming itself to the ground almost.
Well, the air gets compressed, so obviously it drags in more downforce, and then when it gets too close to the ground, obviously, then it doesn't work as effectively anymore, so obviously lifts back up, and then you just get this weird sort of wave effect, like obviously a porpoise does. That's where the name comes from.
So it's like bemused all the teams, it seems like. It's going to be a widespread problem, and it is a problem. They can't just leave it like this, because it damages the floor quite badly. Like
we said, this is what Alfa Romeo struggled so badly with.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see the solutions. It could just be raising the ride height of it, but obviously you lose downforce by doing that. So it's a thing the teams need to get their heads around. It does surprise me that no one saw it coming, to be fair.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Like a lot of teams have said, you can test a lot of things in the wind tunnel. Porpoising is not one of them.
Yeah.
You cannot test that sort of thing because, of course, the car isn't moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously we've seen a couple of teams. I want to say Aston Martin, but I could be completely wrong with that one. A couple of teams have taken little chunks out of the floor, little sort of creating little holes here and there
almost
to try and combat
gills,
it.
like they've got on the top of the side pods.
Yeah.
Through the floor as well.
But I think especially, Bahrain's quite a smooth circuit though. So even if you do get a bit of it there, that'll be interesting to see. But how teams are going to fare with that this year. Perhaps this is why I remember when we talked back at McLaren seemed to have put their suspension on the wrong way around. Perhaps, that's why they've done it, because they didn't seem to be a major player that had issues with it as much as other teams in testing.
Yeah, and it'll definitely cause a lot of engineers some headaches around the globe, because they need to sort it out, and I find it really cool that there's something that F1 teams missed, like quite majorly.
Because it does definitely seem like one of those things, doesn't it, that could mean one weekend we have a complete wild card team towards the front.
Yeah.
If they just somehow tune the setup right for that track, could make it very, very interesting.
And especially on bumpy tracks, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. You think something like that down the front straight of Baku is not going to be very safe at all.
Fighting for control almost, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing,
bode well.
reportedly, this was an article today, was saying that apparently only Alfa Romeo are under the weight limit.
Well, on the weight limit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the rest of the field are over the weight, which is obviously leads to disqualification if you go into a race weekend like that. But
no,
like, does it not?
No, it's just underweight. They only have a minimum weight. They don't have a maximum weight.
Oh. Yeah, I read
Have
that
you
article
read that article completely
yeah,
wrong? I sent Jamie this article earlier on, and he's completely misinterpreted it. I guess
so
Alfa
is the lightest. Yeah, you go for it.
So Alfa Romeo are the only team so far that have been able to bring their car that they can run it at the minimum race weight requirement. Every other team at the moment is currently over that, which obviously means that, because I think it's like 1 kilo can affect you by like 0.03 of a second a lap if you can try and shave that off the car.
That's why Nico Rosberg stopped cycling in 2016, as a fun fact.
He kept bringing his bicycle in a Formula 1
No,
car?
no, he stopped cycling over the summer break to lose weight in his leg muscle.
Nice.
And then he got Japan pole by a couple of hundredths, and he says it was because of that.
What, in 2016?
Yeah.
He got pole?
In Japan, yeah. And he won the race. Yeah. That's the race that won him the title, because Hamilton was third.
I'm such a moron. I spent all of that thinking you were on about Hulkenberg.
No.
I could not remember that for the life of me. That really threw me off then for a while. I don't remember. Hulkenberg never won a race. What are you on about?
No, but low weight is obviously better. That's what we learned here.
Exactly. So Alfa Romeo, could early on, potentially be a bit of a dark horse. Like we mentioned them now a couple of times today.
I got my hopes up when I saw that article, thinking that everyone else was going to get disqualified.
You are quite a muppet.
So it's going to be Bottas, Zhou 1 and 2 every race.
Nice. Yeah, no, I don't think there's a maximum weight. I mean, you wouldn't want to make your car out of steel by that any means, but
like the Marussia from Top Gear back in the day.
Exactly. If that Fernando Alonso floats our car, he's going to be buggered.
Oh, what a team! What a show!
I miss Manor. If Andretti could rename themselves Manor for next year, I'd be down with that. I think though, Jamie, we've got through everything we needed to this week. Oh no, we've got a couple of little bits, haven't we? For those of you that like to watch TV.
Oh yeah.
F2, The Dream, Chase the Dream, whatever it's called, is apparently coming out today at the time of recording this. In fact, it might already be out by the time this It probably is already out by the time this podcast goes live. And the new Drive to Survive trailer has dropped as well. Obviously, that releases on the 11th of March, so in just under 2 weeks' time. Next Friday, even, actually, the time of this video going live.
Very exciting times. I'll be watching that.
Yeah, we're both obviously going to do a review of DTS.
Probably won't watch the F2 one because I don't have F1 TV, so it seems unlikely.
I have never bought F1 TV, and honestly, this year I'm very tempted to.
I watched the first F2 Chase the Dream, which was I think 2019, or for 2019 season. It was good. It was very much felt like a watered down Drive to Survive.
That was kind of the point, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was alright. It was worth a watch if you have F1 TV, but I don't anymore, so I would not bother.
Fair enough. So I'm going to be doing a solo podcast then, talking about F2.
Find someone else who's watched it.
Exactly. Yeah, one of 3 people. Yeah, I'll do it with Will Buxton. If he wants to hit me up for a podcast, I'm definitely down. But yeah, so exciting times coming ahead. We've basically, to be honest, Jamie, haven't we? Like, we'll let you guys into a bit of behind the scenes right now. We've basically got all the podcasts sorted out until what? After Jeddah now, isn't it? Because of course Jeddah's only a weekend after Bahrain. So next week we're going to be doing a
livery ranking,
and then of course we got real winter testing this week, that week even, and then of course Drive to Survive. So obviously then the week after that, Bahrain race week, we're going to do our full finalised 2022 championship predictions. Things are getting spicy, Jamie. Yeah. I cannot believe we're 3 weeks away. We need to drop a term
card.
We do. 3 weeks away from F1 2022.
Yeah, amazing. The winter break has actually flown by, to be fair.
We've almost made it.
It is much shorter these days than it used to be, but yeah.
Yeah, getting excited. Of course, I think we both just quickly want to say a massive thank you note. Over the last couple of weeks, I'd like to thank Jamie as well, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
We've done, 13 podcasts over the course of Feb, or something insane like that? Obviously, we've had 4... Well, no, I think it's only about 11 or 12 actually saying that.
Because we combined some of them, didn't we?
Yeah, Haas and AlphaTauri we did on the same day as the reveals. So I think even then we've still done, I think 13 or 14... no, about 11 or 12, podcasts over the course of February, which has kind of been insane, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, far too long talking to a camera. And to Matt, actually.
And to me, definitely. Because, of course, like I've said, obviously, James at university, I work as well full time. So, we do keep very, very busy around this, and obviously just trying to find time in our schedule to talk about these things. But so I'd just like to say thank you to you as well, Jamie, of course, for being here over the last few weeks. But of course, now we've gone through the last car reveals, everything like that. We will be back to normal weekly shows as well, so let us know down in the comments below anything else, obviously, you want us to focus on in these podcasts. Jamie, anything else to add from you before we finish off today?
I don't believe so.
I think we've done a pretty good rundown, haven't we? Capping off everything that we'd intended to. Of course, we will keep discussing everything that's going on sort of around. We'll keep we'll do an update next week on obviously if anything has changed. We've sort of said we've got ideas for what we want to do each week, but there are a few other bits and pieces that we'll have to divulge into. Of course, Haas, anything with that, and then of course any sort of new talks about Andretti, and obviously anything else in the world of Formula One. So if you aren't already, do make sure you leave a follow or get yourself subscribed whether you're watching this on TikTok, on YouTube or Spotify. You can upload 10-minute videos now on TikTok, so perhaps we're going to expand over there as well, Jamie. But thank you all so much for watching, and we'll be back next Tuesday then with more Knowing Wheel.